As centuries passed, the misinterpretation of grace and law formed the backbone of later theological systems like Calvinism and much of Reformed theology. While these doctrines highlighted important truths about God's role in salvation, they often neglected human responsibility and obedience to God's law. Paul's arguments against earning salvation through legalism were misinterpreted as a rejection of the law altogether. In this way, Reformed theology separates the law and grace, creating a dichotomy that was foreign to the original faith. When we look closely at Paul's teachings, they reveal that grace and the law are not opposing forces, but complementary elements that help believers imitate Christ. He shows us that walking in the Spirit naturally leads to a life of obedience. In other words, our good works are the result of our salvation, and not a means to earn it. Paul encourages believers to walk in the Spirit, which aligns us with God's will and produces the fruits of righteousness. These fruits are an outward expression of the law that's been written on the heart of every believer. Friends, Paul explains these things in Romans 7 and 8. He says we serve the law of sin with our sinful flesh, yet through our mind or soul we serve the law of God. He goes on to explain that through Christ, the righteous requirement of the law might be fulfilled in us, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. So was Paul a lawless heretic, or was he just misunderstood? The answer is clear when we let the Scripture speak for itself. Paul wasn't against the law, he upheld it in its proper context. He taught that salvation comes through faith, but that faith leads to obedience. In fact, he wrote to Titus saying that God's grace brings salvation to everyone and teaches us to reject sin and live godly lives as devoted people zealous to do good works. Brothers and sisters, even though mainstream Christianity continues to twist the words of Paul to justify their sinful desires, the Bible calls the true followers of Christ to a different path, a path marked by an active faith, a faith that was once delivered to the saints, a faith that produces obedience, which springs from the fountain of God's grace. I hope you've enjoyed this teaching, and please check out my other videos from Pure Light Ministries. God bless.